Hi there. I'm Phil Gusson, the faculty advisor for College of the Canyons. Vicki?
I'm Victoria Dangtumda. I'm SecGen for COCMUN 2020.
I'm Shannon Klopfenstein. I'm part of the COC Model UN staff.
I am Colin Schneer. I'm part of the COCMUN staff.
I'm Daniel Day. I'm part of the COCMUN staff.
So we want to thank you first for agreeing to participate in our virtual conference and spend a little bit of time explaining to you how to use the functions first in Zoom, but then also how to use the functions in Discord, another program that we're going to be working with. So everybody on the staff is just going to help walk through and show you how this works. Some of you may already be familiar with this if you've been using it in your classes, but we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page when we begin our conference. So if you look over on the far bottom left-hand side of your monitor, on the bottom of your individual screen, you'll see a microphone and a mute button, right? When you click on that, it'll mute your sound, so we won't hear you. So if everybody, I want everybody, Shannon, everybody to mute their microphones. So if you see right there in the corner where Shannon's muted, Vicky's muted, Colin's muted, and Daniel's muted, now you guys talk. Okay, see, we cannot hear them because they're muted. It's a good idea when the conference starts to be muted because sometimes there'll be background noise. Like when we started this video, Shannon's cat was like freaking out, so we had to get her out of the room. So it's a good idea to mute yourself during the conference, and then when it comes time to speak, you just click on the button and speak. So Shannon, just say, click on your button again, unmute yourself, and just say a couple words.
A couple words.
There you go. And you can see over there in the corner that Shannon's the mute button went off and now it's back on. Okay, so that's the first thing. Also, if you look just to the right of that, you'll see video. And the way that works is that if you click on, right now it says stop video. There we go. Sorry to scare you. Everybody's stopping their video. And then you can start your video again. Now, one of the things that we found in doing this conference, you guys can all bring your videos back. There we go. One of the things that we found during the conference and during our simulations is that if everybody has their video on at the same time, it takes up a lot of bandwidth. And so what we found is that it's much easier if delegates, when they're not speaking, to have their video off and their sound will always be off. And so the way it'll work is if you're called on by the chair to speak, you will turn your sound on and you will turn your video on at the same time. So I'm going to ask everybody to turn off their audio, their videos right now. Very good. And we're going to imagine we're in a committee and it's time for somebody to speak. And so I, as the chair, will say, Shannon, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and fellow delegates.
Very good. So see, this is all okay. Let's, Vicki, you do the same thing.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and fellow delegates. South Africa wishes to be added to the speakers list.
Very good. So everybody can turn your videos back on one more time. So that's how we're going to do it. Everybody keep their videos off. Your sound will always be off. And then when you're recognized to speak, then turn your videos back on. The chair will always be on the screen. The other thing I want to show you in Zoom is something over here. If you can see where my cursor is pointing, it says speaker view. And then let me click on speaker view. What happens on speaker view is somebody, I don't quite understand who gets picked, but call and say something.
Hello.
If somebody starts speaking, Shannon, say something.
Something.
Daniel?
I'll also say something.
Okay, very good. They're a very creative group. Speaker view will enlarge whoever's on the screen when they're speaking. If you click on gallery view, now everybody's visible on the screen. Now, we recommend that you use the speaker view, the gallery view, but you can do whatever you prefer. So whatever you want to do. Also, if you look down on the bottom here, you'll see something called the participants list. This is actually going to be an important thing. So I'm going to click on participants. And what you'll see is it lists everybody in the committee. Now we use the participants list for a couple things. There are times when the chair is going to ask, does anybody want to be added to the speakers list, like during a moderated caucus? What you can do in here is, since we're not going to be raising placards, you have the ability with this function to, if you look on the bottom, you can raise your hand. Now, if you click on that little button there, everybody's going to click on it. Right now, I can't see on my screen, on the picture of me, I can't see anybody's hands raised. Colin is the host right now. Colin, can you see everybody's hands raised?
I can see everyone's hands raised on the screen and also in the participants list since I'm the host.
Right. So now you will be able to see the participants list, everybody whose hands up. You won't be able to see it on the screen, but the chair can see everything. So when you raise your hand, the chair will be able to see it both on your personal screen, but also in the list. One of the things you have to remember about the raising your hand function is that you also have to click on it again to lower your hand. Right? Otherwise, it'll stay that way. But if you forget to do so, the chair can just lower everybody's hand on their own. Okay. Also, on the participants list, if you look on the bottom down here, you can see yes, no, and you can see more over here. Normally in a Model United Nations conference, when you vote, the chair will say, all those who are voting in favor, please raise your placard now, and everybody will raise their placard, and the chair will count. And then everybody who opposes, everybody raises their placard and then asks for abstentions. In Zoom, what we're able to do is vote simultaneously. So the chair will say, we're going to now vote on this motion simultaneously. What delegates can do is, if you're in favor of the motion, click on yes. If you're opposed to the motion, click on no. And if you want to abstain, more gives you a bunch of different options. You can click on a clock, a coffee cup, a clap, a thumbs up, a like, a dislike. Doesn't matter. Just click on one of them. And the chair, and Colin will be able to see this, the chair will instantly be able to tell how many people have voted for, against, or over more. That's going to stand in for abstaining. Okay, so we're just all going to vote at the same time. So Colin, what was the vote on whatever we were talking about?
Thank you, delegates. It is clear that this motion obviously fails. There are 2 noes and 1 yeses, and appears 2 abstentions.
Right. So there you can see it. Vicky's voted yes. Shannon and Daniel voted no. Colin gave a thumbs down, and I used the clock for no particular reason. That's how we'll be taking both. So we'll be taking it simultaneously. And for anybody who's chaired before, this is really very helpful because you don't have to worry about counting. So I'm going to close out the participants list. The next function on Zoom is the chat function. I'm going to click on the chat function. What that allows me to do, if you look down here where my cursor is I can send a message to everybody in the committee. We strongly advise you not do that, right? But if you click on the arrow next to everyone, what it does is it identifies each of the people on there. And so if I wanted to send a personal message to Colin, so I'm just going to send a message that just says hello to Colin. Only Colin will see that message. Nobody else will see that message. And so during committee, this is the equivalent of passing a note. So instead of passing a note, you can chat with somebody and communicate with them in Zoom if you want to. Just be clear, just make sure that you don't click on everyone. If there's a note that you want to send to Colin or an individual delegate, you don't want to accidentally send it to everyone because that could be potentially very embarrassing. So now I'm going to close out the Zoom chat function. There's also a share screen function, but you're not going to be able to use that because it's going to be disabled. The only people who are going to be sharing the screen will be the dais, so don't worry about that. The next one over here is reactions. Now, the reactions button, if you click on it, you can see you have the option of doing the applause, or you have the option of doing the thumbs up. We're using these as sort of the virtual equivalent of snapping your fingers in a committee. So if somebody says something you like, just click on one of those. And whether you do an applause or whether you do a thumbs up is entirely up to you. But that's how we're going to interpret the thumbs up. There may be times when the chair says, does everybody understand? And rather than raising your hand, it might be easier to just put a thumbs up, just to clarify. It's just a quicker way of doing it. Unlike when you raise your hands, when I'll do it myself, when I click on thumbs up, it doesn't stay there forever. It'll stay on for a little while and then it'll disappear on its own. So you don't have to worry about clicking it off. It'll go off on its own. Now those are the primary functions in Zoom that we're going to be using. And let me just ask the staff, is there anything that they want to add to that description?
So as you can see in parentheses, they have Colin is using his desktop PC, Shannon's using her tablet, and Daniel's using his phone. So in this conference, we encourage delegates to have more than one device. So if something goes wrong, that you're able to like get in touch with the host, which we will explain the function later, and just so to enhance communication. So diversity in devices is encouraged. Furthermore, in the chat function, we will discuss this in a later video, but sending a note to the rapporteur will not be done using Zoom. It will be done using a different function called Discord.
Application.
Thank you. It will be used in a different application, and we will explain that once we get there. So please do not send a note up to the rapporteur if you're asking to be added to a list or you're just letting the rapporteur know what's going on. So yes, that's all from my side.
Anybody else? Shannon.
Also, those who are using things like tablets and phones, we're also providing written documentation of how to use your different devices.
Right, and the hosts, which we'll talk about in a second, we're going to be in communication with the various schools to help delegates work through this, because different devices are slightly different. But one of the things we wanted to show in this video is Daniel's on a phone, Shannon's on a tablet, Colin's on a PC, I'm on a laptop, as is Vicky. Multiple devices can work, but you have to practice on them and you have to make sure that you know how to use them before the conference. So don't wait to the day of the conference to do that. And we're happy to help in any way we can. So you can always reach out to us and we'll be happy to meet with you either individually or a group to help you sort of figure out how to do this.